Welcome to the Startup Grind.
What did your parents do?
Well, my father was career Army, so we traveled the world and until I was 10, where he received an assignment in Hawaii.
It's horrible.
Yes, and he unfortunately got a second assignment, so we were there for until I was 18, and then he retired there. But I ended up in Sacramento because I just didn't want to stay on an island. So went to school at Davis. Yeah, fell in love with the area, and that's why I'm here.
And so what was your first job, you think of?
My first job was cleaning gum off of grocery store floors when I was 16 years old, yes.
Respect there.
But my first career job, I worked for a company called McCaw Cellular. Became Cellular One, and then AT&T bought us in 1993, and I left in 1997.
So you do have an interesting, when I looked at your LinkedIn profile, you actually went from working at AT&T to, actually trying to bring in the River Cats. Like, how did that, you went from the sort of very corporate world to, this very kind of startup-y sports world?
Is there anybody here that's from the corporate world and now is in kind of an entrepreneur, if you will? All right, whatever you do, don't go back and look at what your 401k or the value of your holdings are at the time, because I made that mistake recently. It's a long story, and I fell in love with the region. Married a woman from here. She didn't want to move. Was looking for passion in my work. When AT&T bought us, it became very corporate. Had a new boss every 6 months, and whereas most of my friends moved and found some other telecommunications job right after or during that period of time, I was really looking for something I could be passionate about. And had a good friend that were bachelors together named Kevin McClatchy. His family obviously owned the B. He didn't grow up here, but obviously his grandparents or his dad was from here, and he bought a minor league team in Modesto, the Modesto A's at the time, and then tried to buy the Oakland A's and move them here in 1995. He was unsuccessful. The family wanted to keep the Oakland A's in in Oakland. And so, funny story, he gets a call from one of his roommates from high school, some boarding school, and who's one of the sons that owned the family that owns the Steelers. Said, hey, the Pirates are coming up for sale. Why don't you move to Pittsburgh, and we'll help you, buy the team and ultimately build a stadium, which he did. So I was driving him to the airport. I was watching over his dog. We had dogs from the same, what do you call them, pack or whatever, same litter. And I was driving to the airport in Oakland. I said, man, whatever you do, don't give up on Sacramento. I had the fortune of my dad taking me to minor league baseball games, and it was fun. And I said, we need at least minor league or Triple-A baseball in Sacramento. So don't give up, And he said, well, given the rules in baseball, I can't do anything, but why don't you do it? And I laughed because I had no money and I had no experience in baseball, and yeah, exactly. And but he said, I've got some friends in baseball that I can introduce you to, and some of you may know Bob Heeman. He introduced me to, he went to college with, who lives here in Sacramento. His dad, was in the commissioner's office at one point. He was the general manager of the Orioles and White Sox, not the Cubs, but at the time was the assistant general manager of the Diamondbacks. And we called him and said, hey, we got this idea. What do you think? And by this time I had an idea of what, the Major League Baseball was looking for from a land standpoint. And we just started the process. And, I'm a salesman by trade, so I just was selling concept and selling ideas and tried to bring people together, and was very fortunate that the Raley family wanted to bring further value to their land, further value to their name. And we got them as a naming rights partnership to build the stadium, and kind of the rest is history.
So what's the hardest part of the whole
There's no way for me to answer that. There's absolutely no way. I mean, everything is hard.
Like, you had to get the funds, you actually had to get players and the management. I mean, I'm just sort of sitting here and I'm overwhelmed, how much stuff has to be done in that process.
Well, I could say that I think the hardest part was being patient, because we knew what we could execute on. We knew we could get a funding, for the stadium. We knew we could buy a team. We had a partner that could buy a team, and you just have to pull everything together at the same time to make it all work.
So you had all these investors, and you had sort of all these different components. You sort of had this.
I had one investor in that case, Art Savage. In essence, we joint ventured. So I brought the stadium, he brought the team, and actually Bob and I brought the stadium, he brought the team. So we developed a joint venture to actually bring the River Cats to Sacramento.
And the stadium, I mean, we had such a hard time with Golden One. How was that? How was the building Raley Stadium? Was that was that just an easier task?
Well, I think everything's kind of timing, right? So I was talking with Mike a little bit in his efforts to bring baseball to Sacramento, and it just happened to be, Major League Baseball had become very vocal that, we're not going to move another team to Northern California. So you're going to either have to move the A's or the Giants. And at this time, this is 1997, the Giants ownership was pretty set on, staying in San Francisco and building the stadium, which they ultimately did. And the A's, the family required the team, the selling family required the team to stay in Oakland. So there wasn't really much of an opportunity for Major League Baseball. So it was really just timing, and it also helped, politics plays into this. You had a gentleman, Mayor Cerner, here in Sacramento, really wanted to only do something in Sacramento. And of course, the folks across the river were trying to prove themselves and ultimately, show that they could play at a high level. And so it just worked out really well to, develop a partnership. And so it's a true only a multi-agency public partnership to build a stadium at the time. So it was a partnership between Yolo County, the city of West Sacramento, and the county of Sacramento. 100% privately paid for stadium, but 100% publicly bonded. So we, at the time, it was a very creative structure. You can't do it now. The laws have changed, but it allowed us to access lower interest rates. And this is crazy. These were low interest rates in 2000. The interest rate today is still 8.6%. And so imagine what, our debt would have been if we built that now, so. Anyways, I can't really answer because there's so many hard things along the way.
How long did this whole process take, you think?
I started it in 1996, and we actually really heartfully in 97. Then I left AT&T to focus 100% of my time on it, and we finalized the bond financing in July of 99. We started construction in August of 99.
When was the first River Cats game?
May 15th, 2000. So we built the stadium in 8 months.
All right. It's a beautiful stadium, too.
Thank you.
I love that stadium. So are you still involved with the River Cats?
I am not. So no, I've
So
sold my ownership so I could put it into the Republic.
Okay. So after that, after there, you looked like you did more of a start, the typical startup. Like you had Prosper Publications. What was that about?
I did that when I was still at the River Cats. So, my biggest learning experience, and I just felt Sacramento needed, to represent itself better in its publications, and especially with what at the time what was happening, which has really blown up. There was this huge movement towards millennials and really startup kind of concepts. And so we really tried to, Prosper was designed to really kind of celebrate that. And we did a great job. The only problem was it was kind of the end of the print world.
Right.
And we were too slow to move into the digital world. And when the crash came, Mike Thiel, who ended up being the investor who partnered with me, we just knew we weren't going to make it through 2007, 2008. So we just decided to shut it up because it would have been too many losses to carry through that.
What about what was Clean World?
So Clean World is an anaerobic digestion company. So after leaving the River Cats in 2008, and kind of, we were in this market downturn, I started consulting, and I learned as a consultant that I'm not a consultant. I had a number of projects where I'd give advice and people wouldn't listen to me, and so it was like, why am I doing this? Clean World was this idea that was developed at UC Davis. It's a UC Davis technology that was very well written about, and it's a new process to allow for those that don't know. Everyone's anaerobically digesting right now, but in essence, it was a way to capture gas and create renewable products. So Clean World, we also needed public funding for these type of projects. In Europe, they still are paying or subsidizing these things. In the United States, you need to get these technologies to a point where they actually pay for themselves. And so we ended up partnering with Synergex, and they developed a venture capital fund. So we ended up selling the company to them in 2011. We since then have built 2 plants, actually 3 plants, and have taken care of the first 2 revenue streams, which are capturing waste, converting the waste, capturing gas, converting the gas, both electricity and fueling trucks. But the last revenue stream, and the most important revenue stream, is the organic fertilizer product that you develop out of the back end. And so they've been 3 years in front of the CDFA and the NOP, the national organization that actually approves organic certifications. But once they get that, I mean, they've already pre-sold all their product, and so it's really great. I mean, it's by law in 2020, every city will be required to capture this part of their waste stream, and nobody knows how to do it. We can't build composting facilities anymore because of the odor issues. So you have to do everything what is called in vessel, and so it's got this really good opportunity to capture the market. We just absolutely need to make sure that we get the certification. So once we get the certification, then all the revenue streams are aligned. So
Are you still involved in that, or?
I am on the board. Yes,
Okay.
I actually had a call on the way in here on that. So.
You got lots of different hats here.
Mm-hmm.
So, which takes me to the point, what was the genesis of the Republic? Like, how did that come about?
Well, I think everything's timing. So I had finished my employment contract with Synergex through the sale, and that space just moves so slow. I mean, you have to convince government to change, how they do business. And I was just looking for something that could move quicker. And obviously, we were all cognizant of what was happening in our community with the possibility of losing the Kings.
Right.
In 2005, the River Cats, Art and I were asked to help, find a way to save the Kings because everyone knew that they were in Anaheim, talking to Anaheim about moving to Anaheim. And so we worked in, put a measure in place that ultimately was killed by the Malou family, the Q&R. It was a public financing strategy that would fund the zoo, fund the river, and also build a stadium for the Kings. And so I was close enough to know that there were some other opportunities. And in 2004, when I was with the River Cats, we were asked to take over a Triple-A baseball team in Portland, which was in bankruptcy, called the Portland Beavers. And it came with this little soccer club called the Portland Timbers. And we actually tried to close the Timbers. We were stopped by the mayor. He said, if you wanted to use this facility, then you have to keep the Timbers in place. And we said, okay, we'll give it a year. But we learned a lot. We learned Portland's very similar to Sacramento sociographically and demographically. We learned that there's this huge millennial movement in the sport that nobody understands. Every sport's trying to capture millennials, and yet they're flocking to this sport. We learned it was easier selling tickets in soccer, a game every other week versus an 8-game homestand. And the last thing we learned is we missed an opportunity. In 2008, we sold it to Merritt Paulson, the son of Hank Paulson, and he said he wanted to get to Major League Soccer. We thought he was crazy, and the next year he got awarded the franchise, and he just won the championship last year. He's probably the second most valuable franchise in the league. So we learned, frankly, that what was done in Portland could be done in Sacramento. So as I was looking to kind of reinvent myself again, I was looking for something I could be passionate about, but something I knew a lot about. And so it was just natural to copy what worked in Portland, Seattle, Montreal, Vancouver, and now Orlando, and that was to take a USL Pro club team and then, get people excited about it in the marketplace, bring in a representative ownership group that MLS would like, and then ultimately build a downtown stadium. So it was a game plan that has worked in, 5 other cities. Why not try in Sacramento?
So you actually had to buy it. Was it a Republic started here, or did you actually buy another team?
No, we received a new franchise from the United Soccer League.
So that means you had to recruit a coach, players,
Yep.
everything.
Yep.
How was that process?
I don't know. It seemed to work for us. I mean, we won a championship,
Right, the
and
first year out.
yeah, and I think we were fortunate to have. The one key hire I made was Graham Smith, who was our technical director at the time. He's now the director of football. He was a former chairman of the board of Chelsea back in the 80s, so he's been around soccer his entire life. He lives in California. We've done a business deal. We put a Mexican match in Raley Field, and we just got to know each other back then. And so I reached out to him and said, hey, this is what I want to do. I need some advice. Can you point me to somebody that can help me? And he said, hey, I'm retiring soon. I'd love to do a project like that. And so we partnered with him, and ultimately, I don't know anything about soccer. I am clear. I'm still trying to learn soccer. It's still so confusing to me. So you gotta bring in people that really know
I
it.
just watched my kids play, and I still don't know the rules.
Yeah.
Crazy out.
Yeah.
So what do you think the key hire? It's almost like the Cinderella story. You got your freshman year, and you win the championship. So what do you think the key hire was to on the Republic? Is it the coach?
No, I mean, it was more. We had a great team of people. I mean, and still do. I mean, Erica Bjork, our VP of Marketing and Communications. Probably the hardest worker in Sacramento by far. Joe Wagner, who had had run multiple franchises, but married a girl from Sacramento and wanted to come back. Graham, obviously, we talked about. Hiram Preki helped a lot from a marketing perspective. It didn't help as much when he wanted to leave us, but no, I think we've been very fortunate just to have a lot of great people. I think we just represent Sacramento. I mean, there's so many great people in Sacramento, so many talented people in Sacramento. And these were people that had, from the industry and had 160 years of professional sports experience in our first year. So we had a lot of people around the table with good minds to actually, make sure that we could execute.
I think I remember looking the first year. I think you almost sold out pretty much your games.
We sold them all out. Yeah.
Was that something because soccer was popular, or was there a marketing thing to it?
Well, it was a strategy. So we didn't know. When we first said we were going to come to Sacramento, we were going to play at Hughes Stadium. I don't know if anyone knows where that is. That's the football stadium at Sac City College. And then as we started talking to Major League Soccer and the rest of the industry, everyone said, hey, if you want to be taken seriously, you have to play on a full pitch. All right, and I thought that was a curveball. All right, and a pitch is really a soccer field. So, and Hughes was too narrow. It was only 65 yards wide. It had football lines on it. It was AstroTurf, all 3 strikes for a soccer field. So we're very fortunate to partner with Cal Expo and Ovations to build a new soccer field or new pitch. And but we knew we could sell roughly 5,000 season tickets, just with our market research and our experience in the market. So we wanted to design a stadium that was, right-sized for that. So 8,000 was the right number. If you can get, roughly 65% of your tickets sold in any sports franchise from your season tickets, you'll likely sell out. So we designed that at 8,000 and knew we would sell out.
Good place to be. So
have you been? Have
I
you been?
like soccer.
And how do you know?
I got your tickets. So. The only soccer games I got to go with my own kids. So, so in terms of what do you think? There's a lot of rumblings. So what's the chances of, what's the strategy of you actually getting an MLS franchise?
Well, I mean, I know my role, right? So I'm the kind of the startup guy, and then eventually you have to bring in an ownership group that can spend $450 million, right? So, and then you need to be able to build a downtown stadium. So we were fortunate to partner with Kevin Nagel. You know, I'm sure you've talked to him about his startup endeavors. If you haven't, you should. He's
He was here last summer.
great. He's a great man, and frankly, you know, while we've had some challenges in our negotiations, we're all of our interests are aligned, and frankly, working really well together. And you know, he's put together just an amazing ownership group. You know, a lot of local people, but it also includes the Kings ownership, the Niners, Meg Whitman, and some others that will be announced here soon. It's just an amazing group. So if you really look at what Mayor Johnson laid out was, you know, we called this Project Turnkey, you know, which he named, and what we wanted to do is make it easy for MLS. And knowing that we're in competition with these other cities, the best thing we can do is make it easy for them to say yes. So if you know that they need three things, you know, deliver the three things, right? So we've proven the market. We've gotten them excited about the Sacramento market. They've already said they love the market, and they love to be here. And we need, you know, an ownership group that they like, and they love Kevin, and they love the ownership group that he's building. And we're the only stadium that's pre-approved. You know, Kevin has spent an amazing amount of money to get the stadium to a design, and then ultimately through all the environmental work. And frankly, all they have to do is pull the trigger, and he can start construction almost the next day. So if you really read tea leaves, I mean, I don't really pay too much attention to the commissioner, because his job's to hype up everything, right? To drive his prices up and to get more people excited. So, you know, Sacramento really helped him. You know, St. Louis was a dismal market, and their USL team was not performing very well. Phoenix, San Antonio, Charlotte, Detroit doesn't even have a team. I have a PDL team, and so you have all these markets that all of a sudden said they wanted to do something, but they haven't proven the market. They may have one or two ownerships, but they don't have the type of ownership group that Kevin's put together, and none of them have a stadium that's pre-approved. So if you look at what the commissioner's going through with Miami currently, and if you've read recently, you know, the commissioners, the government officials there are now questioning whether even they want to do a deal with them. And they awarded, you know, David Beckham that franchise 5 years ago. So what MLS does not want to be in a position where they award a franchise and a team doesn't start play. So we have everything in place, and you know, I think Kevin's done an amazing job to actually get everything in place. All the things that I couldn't handle, you know, so my job was to stay in the lane and keep, you know, building the Republic, getting people excited about what we do, and I think our team's delivered on that.
So you is it more like, does every year you get an opportunity, or how often do you get an opportunity to you know, get an MLS franchise?
Well, you know, the league's only 20 years old, so, right? It's its 22nd year this year, right? So it's just growing, but it's growing at a very, very rapid rate. You know, when we started talking to them, there were only 19 franchises. Now they have 24. 23, 24 will be added in 2019. So they've really had to refine their process, and they've come out with a much more formal process. And this is after they've asked us, you know, 5 different times to really execute, and all those 5 times we have executed. So they keep moving the goalposts on us. I can say this, Kevin probably can't, but you know, it's our time now to, I think, to leverage, you know, all the work that we've done and ultimately get them to award Sacramento a franchise now versus, you know, waiting. So I think we've got a chance to do that. I personally believe Sacramento will be awarded. I know Kevin Nagel is smart enough also to know that if he's going to spend $10 million plus, he's going to want to make sure he's going to get that return. So I feel very comfortable in where we are. You know, Benny can probably address it even a little bit more. I think the commissioner is in a real box as it relates to Sacramento. I can tell you this, if Sacramento didn't get an award, he's got an even bigger problem in the industry, because everybody in the industry loves what's happened in this community. They love how each and every one of you helped to participate and build this brand. And ultimately, you know, if Sacramento's not awarded, then he's going to have, you know, I think he's going to have some even more challenging things ahead of him.
Well, all right.
What's that?
Well, all right.
Yeah, they
So
will.
I'm gonna, you know, we're constrained for time, so I'm gonna go ahead and open up some questions to the audience. So anyone?
Yeah.
I'm curious. You talked about the growing populated sport among millennials. If you look 10, 15 years out, where do you think MLS will stand in sort of the pantheon of major American sports, and what's your sort of vision or view of that?
Well, I have a hard time believing it will not be the number one sport in this country. I mean, baseball's declining because people aren't playing, and basketball is kind of stagnant, and NFL's got some major issues in front of them that they're very honest about, and yet this is a sport where just the people participating is growing at 22% clip every year. So 22% more people every year play the sport more than last year. In Sacramento, to give you an example, we have 133 people that actually are registered under FIFA playing soccer. When we started the River Cats, we were excited because there were 45,000 people playing softball and baseball, but this is 3 times as much, and it's still growing. So I have a hard time believing it will not be the number one sport. It's still young. It's only 20 years old. I think one of the things that has hurt MLS's growth is the EPL's growth, and it became your team. You found your team before you had the chance to get an MLS team, and but what we also know in soccer is that people want to have their worldwide team, but they also want to have their local team. So I'm a firm believer that this sport will surpass all the others.
Is that the number one sport in the U.S.?
Yes, sir. Nice shirt, by the way. He missed my point.
The weaknesses perceived in advertising dollars.
What do you mean?
Like about 2 years ago, there was sort of a draft proposal sent to MLS that said, well, yes, we recognize that some of our weaknesses in not having big corporate companies available to sponsor.
Well, I think differently. I mean, if you look at some of their sponsors, I think, Wells Fargo, Audi, Volkswagen, I mean, they've got all the other brands that everybody else has. I think the challenge has been what those corporations are willing to spend, okay? And you're seeing dramatic changes. I'm going to give you an example, our kit deal with UC Davis. And there's not much I can say, but I can tell you right now that would be top 5 in the league right now, if we were in the league today. And because they got to see, the value of, the brand, they got to see the value of the sport and how it drove their business. Advertisers, I've sold sports, I've sold magazines, and I can tell you, the traditional ad buys are going away. The traditional marketing dollars are going away. How you actually drive revenue is how you can drive return for them. And I think nobody actually addresses that better as a sport than MLS. And they're open and honest about their viewership numbers need to drive, right? As their viewership dollars or viewers grow, their numbers are going to just escalate very quickly. And the funny thing is everybody in our industry knows it, right? Everyone's watching what's happening in soccer and trying to copy what's happening in soccer currently.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
I don't watch professional sports in any capacity whatsoever, but I imagine, maybe I'm wrong, that your prices for a family, stereotypical, nuclear family of 4 or people to go, is much less than football or other expensive sports. 1, is that true? And 2, if so, is maybe that one of the main reasons why you're getting growth? Not necessarily because it's popular, but because going to a football game or a Kings game or any other sports game is super expensive nowadays for an average middle class, even working class or a rich person.
You know what my number one challenge is? People like you. And you know why? because you just haven't come and experienced it. But once you do, you'll fall in love with it. I believe you will, because it's not about the game. It's about the experience. And, you know, we've been very fortunate to have a very strong supporters group in the Tower Bridge Battalion who do a fantastic job of creating an atmosphere where it's, you know, fun and entertaining. They stand and cheer the entire game. And that's how it works in the rest of the world. And that's, you know, what adds to the experience. But to answer your question, even at the MLS level, your average ticket pricing today is roughly in the high 30s, right? Whereas every other sport's, you know, at or above $100. Well, baseball's, you know, the average is, you know, like $75. But still, you see, at the MLS level, we're still a lot less affordable. But again, it's you know, it's about the demographic, and the people that buy these tickets are between 24 and 32 years old on average. So you're appealing to their wants, their needs, and ultimately, you know, what they're able to spend. Yep. Yes, sir.
So as a Brit, I can definitely consider and commend you guys for the atmosphere that you have created here compared to
Thank
games
you.
I've seen in person and EPL and stuff. My question is more, how do you view the transition now from Body Field to the new stadium as far as maintaining kind of that brand and that atmosphere, you know, away from something that's being very kind of family and community focused
Sure.
there, and the challenges you have to move to somewhere that could be seen as more kind of corporate as an environment in the new stadium?
I don't think it'll be more corporate. I think one of the things that Kevin's done a really good job of is he had 3 goals: to make it the most intimidating place to play, to make sure that we you know, had the right protection, i.e. the roof systems in place, but ultimately and you know, make it about Sacramento. So all in the design elements are really, you're going to see a lot of, you know, Sacramento from walking in the I'm in the industry, I can't remember the names, but you know, where you walk the concourse area, it's, you know, all the steel structure emulates our tree canopy, for example. The rail yards, and so there's a lot of Sacramento that's brought into this. But the most important thing for you as a soccer person, what we try to do is create 5 different total environments. So really, it's 5 different neighborhoods within one stadium. So we obviously have the Tower Bridge Battalion section, which is going to be, you know, 2,000 plus seats in that area. That place is going to sell out absolutely no problem. And then a west side that's a lot more like the German stands. It's steep and you know, very focused on the pitch. And then more of a kind of a South American flair as well to another part of the stadium that allows us to really bring the fans closer. And then, of course, we have the side that's a little bit more corporate, right? The kind of the higher end on the west side. And so we're trying to create, you know, multiple atmospheres. Because what we have found in sports, you principally like to sit in the same place you sit all the time, right? You become very familiar. You don't want to, you know, sometimes you do have people that want to upgrade, but most of the time they want to stay in the neighborhood. And it's a neighborhood because they've developed relationships with the people around them, the season ticket holders around them. They enjoy the match with the people that they have been going to for a long time. So that's really what we're trying to create, is that atmosphere. And I feel very confident that I can tell you that ultimately that experience will be replicated in this new stadium.
We have time for one more question. Laura?
What's the timing on the new stadium? Is it like 3 or 4 years out as they develop the rail yards?
No, I think this will be the first project that's built in the rail yards. And again, if MLS told us today that, if you told Kevin they had a franchise today, he'd start construction tomorrow. Mm-hmm. It's an overstatement, but he could start it, you know, immediately. But the way it's lining up, we would have to start play in 2020. So the new stadium would have 2.5 years to be developed. It takes about 18 to 20 months to build a stadium of that capacity. So ideally, we get an announcement, you know, mid to late this year, and then we can start construction, have it ready for first week in March in 2020.
Cool.
We're excited. So last question, Who's your favorite superhero?
Wow. Gosh. I'd have to say that my favorite superhero is Captain America.
All right. Well, you
Good
are a
choice.
local hero to us, and so we actually made a video game for you.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
And I'd like you to, thank you for coming in and
Thank you,
supporting our
Rich.
community.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Can I say a word real quick about
Sure.
all the work that you guys do? I mean, you guys, Sacramento's going through an amazing what's the right word? We're reinventing ourselves as a community. And frankly, I think we're finally learning the value of what business means. I think our government officials have finally learned the value of what business means in our community. And, I've got some amazing friends that are doing amazing work. If any of you met John Bissell with Micromidas, it's going to be $1 billion company in West Sacramento. That's really how we're going to change this community. So keep up doing what you're doing. Frankly, I kind of wish I was doing it in your area because, because I looked at where my 401k would have been.
Don't do that.
But I want to thank you all for the work that you do. And it is a grind. All that we do, all those that are entrepreneurs have to understand that it's not for everyone. And I'm hopeful that whatever you do, you just don't give up. You don't give up. Remember what Winston Churchill said. If you're going through hell, keep going.
All right.